We're doing an Edmonton housing market report for the month of March using the most recent statistics available from the Realtors Association of Edmonton, which is the February statistics. The last year has been pretty crazy with lots of ups and downs for those looking to buy or sell a home in the Edmonton real estate market. But if you're looking in other markets, there's also a whole bunch of guys across Canada that are also doing an update video at the same time. I've got the links in the description below so you can check out their videos as well. So make sure you check those out. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna look at the market as a whole, then we're gonna look at single family homes and then condos. So let's jump right in. So we're gonna start by taking a look at the market as a whole. But before we do that, if you like knowing what's going on in the Edmonton real estate market, make sure to like and subscribe to this video so that you never miss another update. Okay, so looking at the Edmonton market as a whole, you can see that the listing absorption rate was sitting at 22.57%, which is a bit of an increase from last month in January when we were sitting at 18.63%. So as a whole, we're still in buyer's market territory, but it has begun to shift. It was sitting pretty flat in the 18s and 19s, basically since September of last year. So seeing it jump up to 22.5 essentially is at least a bit of a shift in the market. Of course, it's nothing compared to what we saw last year when we were sitting at a 45% absorption rate in February and then jumping up to a 58% absorption rate in March. I don't think we're gonna see it quite like that again this year since interest rates have gone up so much. That's really helped to curb a lot of the demand, but we're still seeing the market shift as we get into the spring market. Now, the average price for Edmonton as a whole was sitting at $349,325 in February, which was down 1.27% from last month and down 15.27% from February of last year. So now looking at the active and sold listings, there was 4,028 active listings at the end of the month and 909 sales. So the number of listings has actually gone up 6.62% from last month and up 12.92% from February of last year. And the sales have gone up 29.12% from January, but they're down 44.37% from February of last year. So even though we're starting to see the market pick up in terms of number of sales, that's normal this time of year, it's still nothing like the numbers that we saw last year. If you look at the 13-month history here, with the 1,634 sales last February compared to 909 this year, that's a pretty significant drop. So there's definitely a lot less transactions happening, but last year was pretty crazy. We also have more inventory this year compared to last year. Last year we had just over 3,500 active listings at the end of the month, whereas now we've got just over 4,000 listings at the end of the month. That helps to give you a little bit more to choose from if you're a buyer and doesn't make it quite as stressful. You don't have to act like right now like you did last year when you were looking at a house if you liked it. All right, so the average days on market is sitting at 57 days in February, which is a little bit faster than what we saw in January when we were sitting at 65 days on market, but quite a bit slower than what it was last February when we were sitting at 35 days on market. Now, in terms of the market distribution, that's the different price points that the sales happen. We had 22.89% under 200,000, 18.3% between 2 and 300,000, 24.69% between 3 and 400,000, and 17.74% between 4 and 500,000. After you get over 500,000, there's a pretty steep drop with only 8.93% of sales between 5 and 600,000, 3.29% of sales between 6 and 700,000, and 2.11% between 7 and 800,000. After that, it's less than 1% for each price bracket. So that's the market as a whole. How about we look at the single family home market? But before we do that, I did want to mention that if you're looking at buying or selling a home in Edmonton, I am a realtor with Yeg Pro Realty here in Edmonton. I'd be happy to help you out with that. But the best way to get started is actually just have a casual conversation. You can ask me anything that you want about the Edmonton real estate market, your specific situation. And you can do that by going to booktrevornow.com and you can select a time on my calendar and just book a free 30-minute strategy call. There's absolutely no obligation for you to work with me as a client. All I hope is that I'm able to help you and that we can connect. And if you do end up becoming a client in the future, then that's great. Otherwise, there's no obligation. So go to booktrevornow.com, select a time on my calendar, and then I'll give you a call. All right, so let's look at the single family home market. So the single family home market was a little bit surprised by the stats here. So we were sitting at an 18.19% absorption rate, which has gone up a little bit from last month, but not as much as I was expecting. If you saw one of my last videos, I talked about how homes under 500,000, that market was getting quite tight, but it was a completely different story if you were over 500,000. Seeing the market as a whole here for single family homes, you can see that that upper price point is really dragging down the performance of the market. And if you only look at these general numbers like that I'm showing you today, you might get the impression that the same thing is happening in the lower priced homes under 500,000, but that's definitely not the case. Sometimes it's worth digging deeper into the statistics at different price points to really see what's going on in different markets. So if you want to get more information on that, make sure to check out my other video about how it was getting harder for buyers under 500,000. Okay, so let's take a look here a little bit closer. So again, the absorption rate has been relatively steady since August in single family homes when it first dipped under 18%. And now it just kind of came up a little bit, so it's just over 18%. So it's a slight improvement from January. The average price for single family homes was sitting at $450,473, which is just up 0.31% from last month. But still down 10.16% from last year. Looking at the active and sold listings, there was 2,518 active single family homes for sale at the end of the month, and there was 458 sales. The number of active listings is up 7.79% from last month and up 87.49% from February of last year. So it's almost night and day in terms of how many options there are available on the market. But again, at what price point, that's where things really come into play. There's a lot more to choose from at the higher price points where there's a lot less buyers. Those properties are sitting on the market for longer. Now, in terms of sales, they're up 18.35% from January, but down 65.12% from February of last year. So if you look at this market distribution here, just over the last year, you can see February was super tight, March was super tight, and then it really dropped significantly in April, but it was still going pretty good, and it just kind of kept going down from there until August, and then it stayed relatively balanced in terms of the balance of the market with sales and active listings. We got a lot more inventory than we did last year and significantly less sales, so that will make it a more enjoyable market for most buyers, but again, depending on the price point that you're looking at. Now, the average days on market was sitting at 54 days compared to 64 days in January, so things are picking up. They're starting to move a little bit quicker, but nowhere near where it was sitting last February when we were at 27 days on market. Now, looking at the market distribution for single family homes, you can see there's barely anything available under 200,000, 1.889% of the market. Between 200,000 and 300,000, you've got 12.66% of the market, and between 300,000 and 400,000 is just over 30% of the market. So that was actually the biggest segment in February, between 300,000 and 400,000. That's definitely what I've noticed in the market as well. There's a lot of people looking for something under 400,000 for detached homes, just because the interest rates have gone up so much, and along with those stress tests, a lot of people can't really afford much more than that, especially if they're first-time home buyers. Then between 400,000 and 500,000, you got a still pretty significant chunk of the market, which is 26.98% of the market, and then almost 15% between 500,000 and 600,000. After that, it drops again pretty substantially, 6.15% between 600,000 and 700,000, 3.55% between 700,000 and 800,000, and 1.3% between 800,000 and 900,000. Now, if you're on the higher end of this pricing, if you're a seller, you've got to be a lot more realistic on your price. Higher priced homes are more sensitive to the interest rates. And if you're a buyer looking at higher priced homes, you're probably going to have a little bit of easier time in terms of negotiating a good deal. Okay, so we're going to quickly look at the condominium market. My stats are still a little bit messed up on this with my infographics since the Realtors Association decided to change how they categorize things. So I'm actually only got the data in here for apartment condos. It's not including townhouses. So we're just going to look really quickly just at the absorption rate for apartment condos is sitting at 13.11%. So still a strong buyer's market. The average price for apartment condos was sitting at $184,455. And in terms of active and sold listings, there was 1,510 active apartment condos at the end of the month and 198 sales. That's pretty much it for apartment condos. I did want to get into a couple more things about the market as a whole and show you how the Realtors Association of Edmonton has changed how they're reporting on their statistics. So they've broken it up into all residential, which includes everything, detached homes, which is what I basically just went into on the single family side. Then they got semi-detached, which is just half duplexes. I have not reported on any of that separately yet. And then they ended up grouping row houses and townhouses together, which actually includes both condominiumized row houses and townhouses and single family titled row houses and townhouses. So that's definitely causing some confusion in the stats. My old updates used to include townhouse condos along with apartment condos in that whole report. But now that the Realtors Association of Edmonton has pulled that out, I'm only showing apartment condos in there, and I don't have great stuff to show you for row houses and townhouses. So wanted to show you a little bit on that. Just looking at semi-detached, that's half duplexes. The average price in February in Edmonton was $361,000. And the median price was $368,000. And then for row house / townhouses, which includes both condos and non-condos, the average price was $250,000 and the median price was $246,000. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was some of the benchmark prices using the MLS Home Price Index. The benchmark price in Edmonton as a whole was sitting at $364,000, which was actually up 1.1% from last month, but down 6.8% year over year. And just looking at this benchmark price trend here, you can see that things kind of peaked in April, May in terms of the benchmark price as a whole across the market. And then it's been kind of steadily going down since June or July. And we've had a couple bounces. It bounced a little bit in December, then went down again in January, and now we're bouncing again in February. So it's still a little too early to tell how this is exactly going to play out. But some people that were waiting for a market bottom, right now as we're getting into the spring market, it's hard to imagine prices going down in the spring. So I'm not surprised that we're potentially seeing a bit of a bounce here. Now, in terms of single family homes, the benchmark price was sitting at $427,000, which was also up 1.3% from last month, but down 6.4% from last year. The benchmark price for apartments was sitting at $172,000, which was up 1.4% from last month and down 2.5% from last year. And the benchmark price for townhouses was sitting at $215,000, which was down 0.2% from last month and down 6.8% from last year. So I hope you found this valuable. Again, wanted to remind you that there's a whole bunch of other people across Canada, creators that have made market update videos for different markets across Canada. I've got links to all of those in the description below. Make sure you check those out so that you can see what's going on all across the Canadian real estate market. If you got value out of this video, make sure to like and subscribe. If you click over here, you can subscribe, and if you click over here, you can watch another video. All right, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.